Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you this Monday afternoon. The sensex and the Nifty end in the green, even as bank stocks see a sell-off in late trade. Midcaps outperform the blue chips. Reliance Industries continues to rally, ending at a 52-week high. At the 50th meeting of the GST Council, finance ministers from Delhi, Punjab, Tamil Nadu and West Bengal raised the issue of bringing the GST network under the ambit of the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the PMLA. GST on online gaming is on the agenda, along with a few other items. The Tata Group is set to become the first Indian company to manufacture iPhones. A Bloomberg report says Tatas are close to buying a factory run by Apple supplier Wistron in Karnataka. Sources confirmed to CNBC-TV18 that Tatas have been doing due diligence for a while now, and some pending issues are in the process of being resolved. Defence stocks rally after proposals to buy 26 Rafale jets and 3 Scorpion submarines gets the green light. Both deals could be announced during Prime Minister Modi's visit to France later this week. The union government is likely to step in as Go First remains at loggerheads with aircraft lessors. Sources say the Corporate Affairs Ministry officials believe it should be easier for lessors to take back the planes when an airline goes into insolvency. Monsoon fury across North India severely impacts lives and livelihoods. Himachal is the worst impacted. The Met Department warns of heavy rainfall across several states. The Supreme Court strikes down the third extension in the tenure given to S.K. Mishra, the head of the Enforcement Directorate, terming it illegal. Orders Mishra to relinquish office by the 31st of July. The Apex Court had barred an extension given to Mishra in 2021, but the government had promulgated an ordinance to nullify the order. Nearly 4 years after the abrogation of Article 370 and the bifurcation of Jammu and Kashmir, the Supreme Court agrees to hear petitions against the decision from the 2nd of August. The court also declares the government's affidavit saying normalcy has returned to Kashmir and will not have any bearing in its examination on the constitutional validity of the decision. Russia launches missile strikes at Kyiv as NATO leaders gather in Lithuania. Sweden is set to become the 32nd member of the military alliance after Turkey drops its opposition. Well, let's start with the market action for the day. The sensex gained over 270 points and the Nifty was up over 80 points. And this despite a sharp fall in bank stocks in the last hour of trade. The Nifty Bank Index lost over 100 points today. On the other hand, midcaps outperformed the blue chips with the midcap index gaining over 300 points. Surbi standing by to wrap up the day's market action for us. Surbi, sum up the start of the week.
Well, not a bad day for the bulls really on the street, though some will quibble and argue that the Nifty is failing to close above certain critical levels. But anyway, the sentiment is cautiously optimistic on the street. There's no taking away from that. We did get about a 0.4% gain on the Nifty today. And yes, the index second day running failed to close above the 19,500 mark. Actually, that zone, 19,500 to about 19,520, it's becoming a bit of a near-term hurdle. We need to watch it carefully to see if the index can go above that hump. What led from the front today? 3 key sectors: auto, FMCG and pharma. And that was very evident in names like Sun Pharma, Eicher Motors revved up, Maruti, and you had some more names like Titan towards the end of the trade, Tata Consumer, ITC. These were names from the consumer space. The problem area for the market was financials, and towards the end, the financial services index, the Nifty Financial Services, that kind of caved in. The Bank Nifty was down at the day's low as well, and that's why the Nifty was a little subdued. The action, however, is really in midcaps. That's where the activity has been hectic. The midcap index put on about 0.8% today, and defense was a solid, red hot space in the market. You look at stocks like Mazgaon, up 10%. Look at Paras Defense. Look at names like BEL. You look at the recent listing, Idea Forge, which was skyrocketing up about 8% higher. The maker of drones is what I'm talking about. So that's one very hot space in the market. And the other is EMS, or Electronic Manufacturing Services. The recent listing, just yesterday, we saw that the big pop on Cyient DLM, 50% gain on listing. Today, the stock put on another 20%. That's the extent of momentum in the market. So midcaps doing well. Nifty, we have to wait and watch. We get into some very important events come tomorrow. We have 2 big earnings, TCS and HCL Technologies, and we will get the CPI print from the US, which will set the tone for global markets. So we should get some more clarity in the middle of the week.
Well, it is going to be a big day. Earnings season kicks off and lots of macro data as well to contend with. Surabhi, many thanks for joining us. Now, shares of Vedanta down 2% today. This after Foxconn withdrew from its $19.5 billion semiconductor joint venture. Both companies have maintained that they remain committed to India. Vedanta has said it has lined up other partners but has not disclosed any names yet. In a statement, Foxconn has said that its withdrawal is not a negative and it says it remains committed to India. Foxconn says it will submit an application under Semicon scheme, which is the government scheme for semiconductors. Now, the Tata Group is set to become the first Indian company to manufacture iPhones in India, this as per a Bloomberg report. The conglomerate is said to be in talks with Apple to acquire the supplier Wistron's factory in Karnataka. The deal is expected to be closed by August. Now, this will be the first time that an Indian company would be assembling iPhones. CNBC-TV18 has independently verified that the Tatas have been carrying out their due diligence on the Wistron facility for a while now. Sources have also told CNBC-TV18 that some issues are pending which require ironing out, and that is a work in progress. The potential value of the deal is at more than $600 million. Defence stocks were firing on all cylinders today. The Defence Procurement Board has approved a proposal to purchase 26 Rafale fighter jets for the Indian Navy. The deal could be announced during Prime Minister Modi's visit to France later this week. Parikshit standing by now to take us through the details. Parikshit, Rafale, what else on the anvil?
Well, we're hearing that there could be 5 to 6 big-ticket defence deals that could be on the anvil. There will be a crucial deal on co-development of jet engines for India's fighter jet program. That will be between Safran of France and DRDO in India. Another deal could be on development of helicopter engines as well. That will be important. Then Mazgaon Dock, of course, has been in focus. One, because of the US Navy's agreement with Mazgaon Dock Limited to repair Navy ships here in India. And now, because the Defence Procurement Board has approved the acquisition, the initial approval for acquisition of 3 Scorpene submarines and manufacturing of them at Mazgaon Dock Limited. So that will be important going forward. We're also hearing that the Defence Procurement Board has given the initial nod to the acquisition of 26 fighter jets for the Indian Navy. These will be Rafale marine aircraft, 22 fighter jets, 4 trainers. But the final approval for this will come at the Defence Acquisition Council meeting that will be held on the 13th of July. The Prime Minister is visiting France on 13th and 14th, and that is where there will be an agreement at the highest political level, and that's where the deal actually has to be signed. So let's see how things progress, but it seems that France is very keen for us to sign on the deal, and we seem to be moving in that direction as well. But a final call will be taken on the 13th of July at the DAC meeting.
All right. Many thanks for joining us, Parikshit. That is a decision that we will wait to get more clarity on. But a meeting that is currently underway, that is the crucial meeting of the Goods and Services Tax Council. It is currently underway in the capital. Now, we are given to learn that many states and union territories have raised their concerns over a recent government notification that has brought the GST network under the Anti-Money Laundering Act, the PMLA. The Delhi Education Minister and GST representative Atishi alleged that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman refused to discuss the matter even when some states raised the issue.
एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा कई सारे फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर्स ने उठाया कि क्यों जीएसटी को पीएमएलए यानी प्रिवेंशन ऑफ मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग एक्ट के तहत लाया गया है। पूरी जीएसटी की व्यवस्था को प्रिवेंशन ऑफ मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग एक्ट के तहत लेके आया जाता है। इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका ये मतलब है कि जो लोग भी जीएसटी भरते हैं, चाहे आपका छोटा से छोटा बिजनेस हो या बड़े से बड़ा कंपनी आप चलाते हैं, अब आपको पीएमएलए के तहत ईडी प्रोसिक्यूट कर सकती है।
Well, yes, the GST Council has resumed the meeting post-lunch, and the issue of bringing GSTN, which is the GST network, under PMLA was taken up by the finance ministers of states, including Delhi, Punjab, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. Delhi's GST representative Atishi Marlena raised sharp questions on how such an important issue wasn't first discussed with the GST Council. Atishi went on to say that the state finance ministers of multiple states urged the Union Finance Minister to discuss the issue in today's meeting, but the Finance Minister has refused to discuss the matter. Atishi also said that unleashing ED on GST payers is not a good decision. Punjab Finance Minister Harpal Singh Cheema also raised the issue and said that the step can be detrimental for India's ease of doing business. Remember that the notice to bring GSTN under PMLA was issued by the government last week and has seen opposition from various finance ministers in today's meeting.
Shivani, many thanks for joining us. Now, IT giants TCS and HCL Tech will kickstart the first quarter earnings for this fiscal, and it looked like it is going to be a tepid quarter for the IT sector, with multiple headwinds expected to take a toll on the top line. Rima is standing by now to tell us what's in store for the IT companies this quarter. Rima.
Q1 FY24 is expected to be weak despite the strong seasonality which typically takes place in the June quarter. What's hurting? Uncertain macros have led to a cut in discretionary spending. Projects are getting deferred. Some of them are going to get cancelled. And this is likely to result in a revenue decline for Wipro and Tech Mahindra. We're expecting a flat revenue growth for both TCS and HCL Tech, while Infosys could clock in a constant currency revenue growth of 0.7% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. And just to put it in context, typically the June quarter is very strong, and last year all these companies grew between 2 to 5% last year. Moving on to margins. Now, margins are likely to remain depressed despite the easing supply-side challenges, and that's on account of weak operating leverage. Margins for, margins for Tech Mahindra and TCS are likely to show a sharp decline. That's on account of wage hike. But for the others, it's expected to remain on the flatter side. The silver lining in the quarter is going to be the strong deal wins and the order pipeline. Most companies, in fact, have announced very large deal wins. For TCS, for instance, there was this $1.8 billion BSNL deal. There was a Standard Life deal. There was Marks and Spencer's deal. Infosys, if you remember, had announced a very large, nearly $500 million deal with a Nordic bank called Danske. And even the others, if you go down the chain, mid-cap IT companies have all reported pretty good order wins, and that's because cost optimization projects have been on the rise. Now let's talk about the guidance for FY24. Now, analysts expect both Infi and TCS to largely maintain their guidance, though for Infosys, the guidance at the upper end may come down. Earlier, it was 4 to 7%. It will come down to 4 to 6%, while HCL Tech's revenue guidance will be maintained, and both these companies are likely to hold on to their margin guidance. All eyes will also be on the new CEO at TCS, K. Krithivasan, as he took over the company from 1st of June. On Infosys, there have been a spate of exits over the last couple of months, which has got the markets a bit worried.
All right, Rima, many thanks. Earnings season kicks off tomorrow with TCS and HCL Tech first off the block. A 5-judge Constitution bench of the Supreme Court will start hearing petitions challenging the abrogation of Article 370 from the 2nd of August. Remember, the centre's move in August of 2019, now close to 4 years ago, had stripped Jammu and Kashmir of its special status. The apex court has said the bench will hear the case on a regular day-to-day basis, except Mondays and Fridays. The court has also said that the centre's latest affidavit shall not be relied upon to argue on the aspect of constitutionality. More court news. The Supreme Court has struck down the third extension in tenure given to S.K. Mishra, the head of the Enforcement Directorate. It has in fact termed the tenure illegal and has ordered Mishra to relinquish office by the 31st of July. Remember, the apex court had struck down an extension given to Mishra in 2021, but the government had promulgated an ordinance to nullify the order. Ashmit standing by now with the details. Ashmit, the Supreme Court basically saying no further extensions can be granted to S.K. Mishra. In fact, the tenure that he's currently on has been held to be invalid. What are the implications of this, and why is he still on till the 31st of July?
Well, the Supreme Court clearly has said that while the centre does indeed have the power to go ahead and to grant such extensions for a 5-year term, it has held that as far as this specific case is concerned of S.K. Mishra, it is invalid in law, and towards that end had asked S.K. Mishra to demit office by July 31st. The rationale of the apex court being that India will be undergoing an evaluation by the FATF, and so to ensure that there's a smooth transition of power, the Supreme Court has granted that small leeway of allowing S.K. Mishra to end his term on July 31st. Now, here's the background to it of it all. S.K. Mishra was appointed in 2018 for a 2-year term. Subsequently, 3 times, 2020, 2021 and 2022, the government had granted him a 1-year extension. This was the 3rd extension that he's currently operating on. In the midst of it all, in 2021, the Supreme Court had held that S.K. Mishra cannot be allowed any further extensions. That, in turn, had been nullified by an ordinance, and therefore we had this litigation before the apex court. So on the question of the ordinance and the power and the changes that were made to the law, well, the Supreme Court said that that's kosher, that's good, that's fine. The centre does indeed have the power to grant this extension, but with respect to S.K. Mishra, the Supreme Court noted that any such move that will nullify the apex court order, that will nullify the mandamus that was granted by the apex court when it had explicitly said that this SK Mishra cannot be allowed to continue as the ED director. That cannot be permitted. That is not good in law, and that is invalid in law. So the apex court asking for SK Mishra to demit office July 31st should be his last date in the office.
All right, Ashmit, appreciate you joining us. And we're not done with court matters. The Supreme Court has deferred hearing the Adani Hindenburg matter to the month of August. The court has said SEBI should conclude its investigation by the 15th of August. SEBI lawyers said the investigation is underway with all available resources. So the hearing now deferred to August. We will take a break, but up next, the government is set to firm up its view on the tussle between aircraft lessors and airlines. We also take a closer look at some Indian airlines facing turbulence. Back in 2. Monsoon fury in North India continues to disrupt lives and livelihoods. The Met Department has predicted heavy rainfall in many states over the next 24 hours. Himachal Pradesh has been the worst hit. 72 people have been killed in the state alone in the last 2 weeks. The situation in Uttarakhand, Punjab and Haryana is grim as well. Our team of reporters bring us ground reports from the rain-battered states.
मूसलाधार बारिश ने पूरे उत्तर भारत को अपनी चपेट में ले लिया है। हिमाचल प्रदेश हो, उत्तराखंड हो, दिल्ली के तमाम जो इलाके हैं वो इस वक्त पानी में डूबे हुए नजर आ रहे हैं। और इस वक्त हम मौजूद हैं हिमाचल प्रदेश में छोटी काशी कहे जाने वाले मंडी जिले में, जहां पर मेरे ठीक पीछे ये बहने वाली व्यास नदी कल अपने उफान पर थी। और उसकी बड़ी वजह ये थी कि पंडोर डैम के भर जाने की वजह से चारों गेटों को खोल दिया गया था, जिसके बाद ये जो व्यास नदी है प्रचंड वेग के साथ उफान लिए हुए आगे बढ़ती चली गई। और उसके बाद ये बढ़ते बढ़ते पानी यहाँ ऊंचाई तक आ गया था। और वो जो छत आप देख रहे हैं, ये पहली छत, वो पूरी तरीके से डूब चुका था। और ये पानी अगर वहां देखें तो रिहायशी इलाकों में भर गया था और वहां एसडीआरएफ और एनडीआरएफ को तैनात किया गया था। रास्ता पूरी तरीके से ब्लॉक कर दिया गया था।
there are areas where water has entered in the household, and in fact I'm standing in one such house where water has in fact entered, and you can see in the visuals, in fact these people have been asked to vacate the area, but they are saying that they are living here since years, and now it is very difficult to shift the all items and the essential needs. पानी कब आया आपके?
पानी जी कल से मतलब सुबह से स्टार्ट हो गया आना 10 बजे से। हाँ। बढ़ गया मतलब धीरे-धीरे एकदम से तेज से बढ़ा, अब भी बढ़ रहा तो अब धीरे-धीरे बढ़ा बिल्कुल।
We are currently present inside the Pragati Maidan tunnel, which is now closed for 4 days, and the efforts are currently being made to remove the water at the earliest. At the same time, you can see that this is the place which is completely filled with water, and this is also one such reason as to why no commuter is allowed to enter or pass through this tunnel.
Behind me is the Chhat Puja Ghat in Delhi, located on the banks of the Yamuna River. We can see parts of the ghat which already have been submerged in water. Not just Delhi, but several other parts of North India are expected to experience heavy rainfall. A flood alert has already been declared by the Delhi government, and people living on the embankments and floodplains of the Yamuna River have been asked to shift to safer places.
Well, nature's fury in full force. Now, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs is looking into issues raised by aircraft lessors in the cases of Go First and SpiceJet. Sources have told CNBC-TV18 the ministry has reached out to the Aviation Ministry over the ongoing insolvency proceedings in the sector. Sources also add that the MCA is of the view that it should be easier for lessors to repossess their aircraft on the back of an insolvency proceeding being moved by an airline. Now, while Air India and Indigo are increasing their capacity and expanding their network, other players, including Go First and SpiceJet, are struggling. Add to that the revival of Jet Airways, which now looks unlikely. Madhiya Mujawar is here with more on the turbulence in Indian skies. Madhiya.
Well, turbulent times indeed for Indian aviation players. As of now, only 3 airlines, which is Air India, as you said, combined, Air India combined, Indigo and Akasa, are flying smoothly. 2 airlines, including SpiceJet and Go First, are staring at an uncertain future, and Jet Airways' relaunch remains a non-starter. Let me start with what's happening at SpiceJet. The airline has posted losses after losses for the last few years. From 900 crores in FY20, its losses climbed to 1700 crores in FY22. And to make matters worse, the Supreme Court has ordered the airline to pay 380 crores to Kalanidhi Maran as interest on the 2018 arbitral award. But that's not the only headache for SpiceJet. Less liquidity led to delayed payments to vendors, and now 3 lessors have moved the National Company Law Tribunal seeking recovery of dues. Important to remember that majority of SpiceJet's fleet is leased, so non-payment to lessors may result in lessors taking back their planes. As of now, according to a fleet tracking site, the airline has 30 of the 61 planes on ground. This means half of its fleet is not operational. When you're not flying enough planes, you're not generating enough money to run operations, and a lot is reflected in the airline's domestic market share that halved from 10% in May 2022 to 5.4% in May this year. Now let's shift focus to Go First. The airline is grounded since early May, and of the 54 planes, only 26 are in a ready-to-fly condition. The aviation regulator has conducted an audit of the airline's facilities but is yet to wave a green flag for its relaunch. The process is more complicated than it looks. Lessors say Go First doesn't have valid leases to fly their aircraft, so fleet availability is a big question here. Then Pratt & Whitney, the engine supplier, hasn't shared any specific timeline to deliver engines to the airline. And now let's look at Jet Airways, which is unlikely to return to the skies. Lenders for the first time have sought liquidation of the airline. That's because the Jalan Calroc consortium hasn't paid any money to creditors or workmen so far. The resolution plan was passed in June 2021. The airline doesn't even have the air operator's certificate anymore. So as I mentioned in the start, India currently has only 3 airlines, that is Air India combined, Indigo and Akasa Air, that are flying without any major hurdles.
Madhiya, many thanks for joining us. Well, turbulent times indeed for Indian aviation. As of now, only 3 airlines, that is Air India, Indigo and Akasa Air, are flying smoothly. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. Do stay tuned to CNBC TV18. We return with the news right after this short break.